In this chapter, we discuss precision medicine and neurosurgery. We survey its applications across the different subspecialties and focus specifically on pediatric neuro-oncology, as we will do in the introduction here. So why precision medicine? The idea isn't a new one. It's been around since the very beginning of neurosurgery and of medicine in general. It relies on the idea that while certain treatments might be best for the population as a whole, when we divide ourselves into more granular subgroups or even on the individual scale, there's a lot of heterogeneity, and that might mean that certain treatments are better for certain subpopulations or even individuals. But the concept we refer to as precision medicine today has really arisen out of the boom in technology, specifically the sequencing of the human genome, which first unlocks the idea that we could access our own genetic code and really understand everything that makes us human. Of course, it's not quite that simple, but subsequently, the cost in sequencing, both in terms of time and money, has decreased substantially, and even farther than this graph, which is a little bit outdated, to the point where it's very feasible to have a sequence for every patient and even their tumor today. So what types of technology are currently available? It expands beyond DNA sequencing, as we discussed, and RNA sequencing and methylation profiling have proven very useful and are often clinically integrated in neuro-oncology today. There are also other technologies like metabolomics, single-cell sequencing, proteomics, high-throughput drug screening, just to provide a few examples of what else is out there and might be coming to the clinic or might otherwise prove useful in understanding these diseases. So will cancers soon be referred to by their mutational status? In a way, this is already true with the 2016 WHO classification of CNS tumors, which integrated a lot of these new molecular markers into diagnoses. But subsequently, things like C-Impact Now and the upcoming 2021 WHO classification of CNS tumors are really highlighting the importance of these molecular markers in prognosis. And here I'm just showing you a schema from a nice review, which demonstrates how a lot of these can play into the subclassification of adult diffuse glioma. So why precision medicine for pediatric neuro-oncology specifically? As pediatric neurosurgeons, we'd like to draw a little bit of extra attention to this special population. There is an absence of FDA-approved drugs for kids in general, and an absence of biotech and pharma, which relates to the fact that these tumors are extremely rare. But while rare, they're often also very malignant and often incurable. There's also significant variability along the age and developmental spectrum, and this combined with the toxicity of chemo and radiation for developing kids makes precision medicine really appealing and important for this population. So how has precision medicine been used in pediatric neuro-oncology? I'm just showing you here 4 studies of its clinical integration, and though still early, they show that it is feasible. And of course, we're doing this at our institution as well. So the patients come in, they're consented and registered, they receive whatever surgery they would normally receive, and tissue is, of course, prioritized for our pathology team, but we also take whatever tissue is remaining, we bank it, we sequence it, and we use it to model the patient tumor. So whatever results come out of the sequencing and the drug screening, we can then take them to in vivo mouse models of the patient's tumor. And whatever results come out of all of these analyses are brought to a multidisciplinary tumor board, which is also very key and perhaps the most important thing in this workflow. Because as we integrate all of these new technologies and this explosion of information, we really need these different expertises to come together in order to make any clinical impact with these findings. And then these findings are, of course, conveyed to the patient's care team and the patient and family themselves. So here I'm just showing you an example of a report we might have generated, as well as the first 50 or so patients from our institution. So what kind of results do we actually get out of this? We, like many others, classify our findings into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is actionable. Those have FDA-approved compounds already available, and patients can be treated essentially immediately if that's the best choice for them. Tier 2, things are relevant, but perhaps not actionable yet, so things might have some prognostic significance, for example. And Tier 3, where things are still exploratory. These are things we'll take back to the lab, and we hope that we or others might someday be able to elucidate their significance or lack thereof, which is also important. So thus far we've focused mainly on the tumor itself, but there are also a lot of extratumoral factors that are important in the disease and are important to address. For example, the tumor changes in response to therapy, especially targeted therapy, so it's important to monitor the tumor over time and make sure that we're addressing those escape mechanisms as they occur. There are also things like tumor-infiltrating immune cells or the systemic immune cells, which both play an important role in the tumor's response to therapy and are especially important to consider as immunotherapy becomes more and more relevant. There are also circulating tumor cells which need to be tackled that aren't profiled in the tumor bulk. And there are factors like heterogeneity in the blood-brain barrier, which are important to consider as we try to treat these tumors with drugs. We need to make sure they get into the tumor and where they need to be in order to take effect. So one of the most important things to consider in precision medicine for neuro-oncology, and the reason cancer is so hard to treat, is that tumors evolve in response to therapy, and they evolve over time in general. So that makes longitudinal profiling extremely important. And this is of particular relevance to neurosurgeons, as sampling the tumor is inherently neurosurgical. So there are things like minimally invasive tumor biopsy and liquid biopsy that are really important to integrate into this workflow in the future. There are also things like AI adjuncts to MRI imaging, such as radiogenomics, which will continue to improve and assist in clinical decision-making. One other challenge to precision medicine, and perhaps the most fundamental and most important, is that as you go from that broad population and subcategorize them further and further, you're going to lose the numbers. So clinical trials that were possible in that large group are going to become more and more difficult and require more and more time to undertake. So new strategies are desperately needed, and they're under development and continue to be developed, such as umbrella trials where one targeted therapy is used in one tumor type, or basket trials where one targeted therapy is used across different cancer types with that alteration. There are also things like platform trials, which change the flexibility of which drugs leave and enter, and things like Bayesian statistics, which help to improve designs. But we'll have to continue considering this as the most fundamental unit of having confidence in a therapy, because it's all meaningless if it doesn't work. Overall, we're really excited about precision medicine for neurosurgery. We focused here on precision medicine for pediatric neuro-oncology, but in the chapter we highlight its applications across different subspecialties and try to provide examples of how it can be important across neurosurgery. We'd also like to note that while scientists are really driving efforts in designing new technologies and elucidating the function of different new variants, and oncologists are really managing the medical therapy on the ground with our patients, neurosurgeons are so crucial to this whole process, not only in sampling but overall, and we're really excited to see where precision medicine for neurosurgery will go in the future.